This episode of the Old Dogs REI Network is brought to you by Mino Studio.
In a world where jobs are how most people make money, one man, one desire, one challenge dares to break the mold. Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where we don't work for money. Money works for us. Coming soon. Viewer discretion advised.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where cash flow is king. Real estate investing, the means, so you can enjoy your retirement dreams. This is the show where we cut right to the chase. No sales pitch, no long monologues, just simple how-to real estate investing advice, so you can earn the passive income you need to enjoy your retirement today. And now, your host and chief old dog, Bill Manacero.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network. I'm your host, Bill Manacero, and this is a show where 50-plussers and anyone else who wants to join us get solid, no sales pitch real estate investing advice to help generate real cash flow. This podcast airs twice weekly on Mondays and Fridays, and if you aren't already a subscriber, go to iTunes, type in Old Dog, spelled D-A-W-G, find our podcast and subscribe. Well, we got a good show for you on tap today. We are going to cover some important stuff that we need to know. It's going to be really interesting stuff too. But as every investor needs to know, we're doing like legal transactions on a regular basis. And so we got to talk to the guys that know legal stuff, right? So our guest today is a gentleman named Scott Smith, technically Scott Royal Smith. Okay, we're not just talking regular blood here. They're talking royal blood here. And he is a real estate investor and asset protection attorney in Austin, Texas. Okay, I like one of the most awesome places to invest. At least it was for quite a while. And he graduated from Albany Law School, began his career in high-stakes corporate litigation. Through his defense work, Scott actually targets defeating lawsuits first before they're even filed. I love that. Scott founded Royal Legal Solutions to offer tax, business, and legal strategies to real estate investors, people like you and me. He has spent the past 8 years of his career diving through case law, reading the ever-changing tax code. Boy, that sounds like fun. And analyzing real estate investments so that his clients don't have to. I love that. Scott isn't just a lawyer, though, okay? He's also a real estate investor himself. He uses a combination of his legal expertise, experience as an investor, and love of helping others grow and protect their businesses to build ironclad asset protection plans for his clients. His primary expertise is in stopping lawsuits before they even start. I love it. It's kind of like insurance here. He is a regular expert contributor to BiggerPockets.com and other real estate investment communities, and is currently writing an ebook on asset protection strategies to help educate the public. Currently, Scott lives in East Austin, and when he isn't busy protecting his clients, he loves to practice jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, kickboxing, exploring the outdoors, and travel. His personal goal this year was to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. Oh my gosh, and he already did it. He succeeded. Well, hopefully he'll tell us a little bit about that experience as well. Wow, well, that's a lot of stuff, Scott, for a young guy. Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network.
Thanks, man. I'm really stoked to be here. It's a lot of fun to be able to come on these shows and to be able to help everybody get like a really good handle on, the really straight shooting kind of advice that they need for their, asset holding as real estate investors. I find, when I look online, a lot of the information seems really disjointed and really confusing. And so on this show, I'm going to be able to tell people exactly like what they should do and why they should be doing it.
I love it. Well, first, tell us a little bit about yourself. We want to know who this guy is that's talking about this legal stuff. Tell us about your background, where you grew up, and how you got into both law and real estate investing.
Yeah, so I went to law school, and I bought my first property while I was in law school during my second year. So I've been a real estate investor for a little over 8 years now, and that was a commercial property, which I ended up flipping and actually graduated from law school with no debts because of that. And that's kind of when I first fell in love with real estate investing, is, when I made some money at it. It was phenomenal. So, I originally read Robert Kiyosaki's book, and that kind of planted the seed. And after law school, I went into litigation, learned that game, learned that everybody that's in litigation hates their life. It's really just horrible work. But what it did is it gave me a special skill set, which is knowing how to attack, right? And so when I started getting back into real estate investing, I realized that none of the investors I was working with here in Austin had any idea of how to protect themselves from the sharky attorneys that you see on, radio and TV and advertising, in any way they can to be able to sue people. And so, I just started helping out some of my friends here with saying, here's the kinds of strategies that we should all be using. And they're like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I've never heard of these things before. I didn't even know this existed. I didn't even know how anybody has ever even told me about that this was even possible to both protect and hide assets and secure them so that way people can sue you and you just really don't care because they're not going to touch your money. So that's what kind of launched Royal Legal Solutions, was then, taking that system and then sharing it with the world about it, all around. So that way, we can all take advantage of what the law affords us into being able to protect ourselves. Because the reality is, you can't really afford to lose when you're talking about real estate investing, because there's either you're somebody out there that's investing to get income producing property to, be able to leave your job or to be able to retire. And both of those things require security, because you can't afford to lose it if that's what you've done is creating freedom for yourself to be able to do those two things. And unfortunately, most people are totally unprotected owning property in their own name. And I personally know one guy that lost over $3 million in real estate investments because he owned all the property in his own name and he thought his insurance policy was enough to protect him. Huge mistake.
Wow. It's funny that you touch on that, because that one of the first things I thought of is there is a really important symbiotic relationship that has to also happen in this investing sphere, and that is the legal, the accounting, and the insurance. I mean, those are like the key elements that kind of protect us, right? I mean, well, I don't know so much the accounting does, but they're working with the entities that we're creating for legal protection. I hate when my accountant and my CPA, for example, when my accountant and my attorney don't agree on something. They're setting up this, for asset protection, but yet they're trying to figure out a way to file, and then you've got your insurance person who's, got your umbrella policy to protect you, quote unquote. Do you find yourself working a lot with those other folks in trying to help your clients to really be in the best place they can be as far as protection is concerned?
Yeah, of course, right? So we have over 1,000 clients all over the country in every asset class. I'm personally in 10 different states right now in a variety of asset classes. So I've touched it all. I'm invested in it all. I talk to professionals all over the country every day about what do we need to be doing for investment strategies and taxation and legal. There's a whole gamut of issues that come up, right? And what I package together, what makes Royal Legal Solutions really different, is that we serve as a one-stop shop for everything that real estate investors needs, from the tax, the legal, the business advice, all of it, like underneath one roof. So that way, like anybody that's with us doesn't have to go through that experience of contacting different professionals that don't agree with each other. Like, we've already distilled it all down, because I've had all of those meetings hundreds of times to say, okay, here's actually the landscape of what you're going to need. I've already talked to 500 people about this. This is the definitive way to move forward. So really, what you need for just everybody in general, I would say, is that you have to have somebody on your team that's an attorney that's going to need to be an attorney that's also a real estate investor, whoever that might be. You never want to hire a professional that's not in the same business you're in, because they might be okay, but they're never going to cut it for the type of advice you really need. The same thing goes with the CPA, is that person also needs to be a real estate investor and have experience in that, because, again, you have to have somebody on your team that's going to also have gone through all of the extra due diligence that's needed to really maximize your tax returns, because they were self-interested in doing it originally. And the last person you need on your team is somebody to actually find the deals. So if you're somebody that actually can identify deals for yourself, or you have somebody on your team already that can, handle the deals for you, then what we recommend is either find 2 other professionals in those 2 categories, or if you come underneath our roof, we're able to handle everything for you from start to finish. So you only have to find deals and we take care of everything else. Because the idea here, Bill, is that if you can create, as we work with, our intention as a company is to be able to create something that says, how can we make an organization that can support investors of doing what it is that they really want to be doing, which is finding deals and having the joy of making money and negotiating deals and being out there with boots on the ground, and without all of the headaches and hard work of all running the business side of it that you have to do. Like, nobody enjoys doing taxes, legal, and paperwork, right? I mean, is that fair to say?
Yeah, well, at least I know in my case that's the truth.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's really what we're trying to do. And so even if it's not with us, just know that that's my 2 cents of advice on, whatever professionals you do want to hire.
I really like that, the fact that you do cover the bases there. Business is a really important one, because, I'm dealing with people they're getting into real estate investing, and it can be listed as an investment, on your taxes. You can still file your personal return. Or, as you start to grow, and which a lot of people are, they're expanding, they're moving into multifamily, they're getting into, more complicated things, even syndication. There's a certain point where you have to look at it as a business. I think that's a part where it's really important that you have an accountant and an attorney that are on board in that realm, where they can say, hey, now it's time for you to really, treat this like a business. And I like that, the fact that you've got folks with expertise in all areas like that. That's really appealing.
Yeah, well, thanks, Bill. I worked really hard at being able to pull this team together, because my standard was they had to be at least as good as me if they're going to work with me, right? I mean, I only pull people on my team that I'd be happy to work for on my executive level. Right now we have 43 people on staff, and a number of lawyers as well as professional staff and support staff for us. So the idea is that we're able to bring in investors that want to partner with us, that people that think like us and believe that we do in investing. That's investing itself is a business. There's a right way to do it, and there's a number of implications you need to think about. But we don't just set up company structures for people. We also have, ongoing memberships to the company. And with that, it's like unlimited ongoing and continuous support for everybody. Because one of the major problems I saw early on was that the level of confusion that exists inside of Bigger Pockets and other networks that I'm really involved in, and trying to help that conversation to give people clarity there. But the reality is that it's just too pervasive. The confusion is it's too intense to be able to really change it. So what we decided to do instead was saying, well, let's bring people into the company and then develop these lifelong relationships to help build people from where they are now into where they want to go, and show them the roadmap for how to do it, and also be able to execute all of the mechanical pieces for them to get them there. So that way they can, find their niche area of investing that works for them, that they're going to make money at. And then here's an affordable way that they can actually build with us. Because what we're ultimately trying to do is give people that very essential peace of mind, to know that everything is being taken care of for them, that if they're ever sued or anything happens to them, that they're protected. And really the types of strategies we're using were previously reserved for the people that, had the buku mega bucks, right? The very sophisticated, savvy, and wealthy. With the advent of the Series LLC, in combination with what we call anonymity trusts, you're now able to provide the highest levels of protection possible legally, to the average investor in a way that's really affordable. So it's really this new technology, this new legal technology that's only been around for about 20 years that's really made it possible.
That's great. Now, what about for like out-of-state investors? I happen to be an out-of-state investor. In fact, a lot of folks that I work with on a regular basis and that are listeners to this show are, based in one state and investing in multiple other states, or at least a couple of other states. Generally, we have to have an attorney from that state that we're investing in because they know the laws of that state, right? Do you guys cover? You mentioned you're like in 6 or 10 different other states. Does that mean you're licensed to practice in those states? Can you clarify that a little bit?
Yeah, the only limitation to what we can do is we can't appear in court for you. Everything else we can do, no matter where you live and no matter where the asset is, and no matter what the transaction is going to be. So that's where the licensing type of issues come into play, is actually court appearances. But that's true. Even if I had somebody here, I'm licensed to practice in Texas as well as New York. Even if I'm in Austin. So even if somebody was located in Dallas, I would say, well, you're going to hire an attorney that's going to be local to the area to be your boots on the ground there. And then we help represent you for free as part of your membership to the firm, to provide you all the legal support you're going to need on the areas that we can, right? Which is going to be all of the structural issues and defenses that are available to you, because we help you set up the company structure and we help you navigate the waters of how do you handle your accounting and your banking, et cetera. So that's really what we're looking for. But the Series LLC itself is our primary vehicle that we use, and that works. That works just like a Delaware LLC would. I'm sure you've heard of Delaware LLCs being established in Delaware and being used all over the country. The Texas Series LLC is just an LLC just like that. We're going to establish it here, and it's going to own properties, everywhere else in the country, through a land trust, which can be a little complicated, but it's not really. So I can dive into here whenever you're ready to hear about land trusts and how we work in conjunction with that.
So the definition of a Series LLC, give me just a concise sort of definition of what that is.
Yeah, so a Series LLC is one company with one EIN number and one bank account and one filing that happens with the Secretary of State. That's how you form an LLC. What makes it special is that it can have as many children as it wants. Each child is its own company, just like an LLC would be. The difference is that they're free and there's no additional filing to create it. So you file and create one parent, and then by doing that, you're able to create an infinite number of companies for free underneath it.
And the children are land trusts? Is that how I would see that?
No, the land trusts are different. So typically with the structure that we're recommending for people is we tell them you acquire the property in whatever way you can and it's best for you for financing purposes. And that's going to be for your first 10 properties in your personal name, so you can take care and advantage of all the conforming loans. Then what you're going to do is just notify us. We then will create a land trust A. So we'll take property A and deed it into Land Trust A. Then Land Trust A is owned by Child Series A, and Child Series A is owned by the parent company. And so when you acquire property B, it's the same thing. We take property B, we deed it into Land Trust B. Land Trust B is owned by Child Series B, and the Child Series B is owned by the parent company. And the reason that we deed it into a land trust is because the transfer to a land trust doesn't violate the due on sale clause, which is a major issue for people looking to protect their property. And a land trust is also anonymous. So in one, we kind of kill two birds with one stone. You get the really cheap financing for your conforming loan. You get to transfer it into a protected company structure without violating the due on sale clause, and you create anonymity that nobody can find out who owns that piece of property.
Now, sometimes with financing, it depends on the bank, but I know that properties that I have purchased, they have said that I have to set up an LLC for that deed, for that property. So would that LLC fall underneath the Series LLC?
You could, or you could simply acquire it underneath that LLC, transfer the property, and wind that other LLC down. Or alternatively, what you could do is acquire it in that LLC and transfer the property into your Series LLC. Now that original LLC would own nothing, right? So what we'll do with that LLC is either run it as your property management company to sign the leases and hire contractors, et cetera, or in conjunction with that, also be your operating shell company. So you can operate all of your business affairs, sign all your contracts, sign all your leases through a company that doesn't own anything, a completely standalone LLC, while all of your assets are being held by a completely separate asset holding company. So if there's ever a lawsuit in any of your business dealings, they can't sue you personally. They can only sue this traditional shell LLC. And that's really important, because a lawsuit against you personally for any reason, if they win, even if they can't take your money because it's already protected, they can still harm your credit score. So every investor really needs at least two companies. One company to be their asset holding company, to be able to compartmentalize all of the wealth they have that's not inside of, their 401ks and IRAs, which are already protected. Everything else needs to go inside of an asset holding company, and they need a completely standalone and separate LLC that doesn't own anything, but it manages everything, meaning it's going to sign all of the leases, collect the rents, hire contractors, enter into any of their business arrangements. Anything that's going to potentially have liability associated with it has to go through the shell LLC.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'd be real interested. This whole area of protection is huge, and especially being from California, where people will sue you for looking at them incorrectly. I mean, it's just they just love to to take you to court here. What are some key things? Points you can give us in terms of safeguarding a person's investment properties from lawsuits?
Yeah, so one of the biggest protections you can have is compartmentalizing every asset, as well as hiding the ownership. So we use trust to hide the ownership of the company itself, as well as each of the properties. That way nobody can find out what you or your company own. The reason we do that is because that's how you stop lawsuits before they even start, is that you look poor. You look like you qualify for food stamps, and so nobody's trying to sue somebody that doesn't own anything, right? It disincentivizes the lawsuits. Lawsuits are a business just like anything else. So once you remove the carrot, you can bet that they're going to stop pretty quickly. The second thing we do is that we compartmentalize every asset inside of the Series LLC. So if they sue, the most they're going to get is one asset. A lawsuit against property A, they can't come after property B, C, D, et cetera, and they can't come after you. So that also shrinks the pool of what they can get. This also disincentivizes the lawsuit. We've actually had this happen in a case where I had a client here who sold a piece of property. She had insurance on the property, and she ended up selling it after doing a rehab on it, where she replaced the plumbing underneath the house. The buyer had asked her, what plumbing did you replace underneath the house? And her response was, I've replaced all of the plumbing. So 6 months later, there's a leak in the second story, and it cost us $75,000 in damages because they were on vacation at the time. And then there's a threat of a lawsuit for fraud because of that email exchange. One person said, here, what plumbing did you replace underneath the house? The other person said, I've replaced all the plumbing. And the buyer says, you told me that you replaced all the plumbing. The plumbing on the second story wasn't replaced, and it caused all these problems. And so I want you to pay me all the money. Luckily, my client had a Series LLC structure put in place. So I was able to go to the other attorney and said, listen, that individual child Series is the one that sold the property to you, right? Your lawsuit can only be against that child Series. And guess what? That child Series doesn't have anything anymore, because after the lawsuit, we pulled all of the money out. There's really nothing here for you to come after except an empty vessel. You're just going to waste a bunch of money trying to pursue this. And we got the lawsuit completely dropped merely because of the company structure. That's how powerful company structures are, right? I mean, the insurance isn't going to step in to protect you, because insurance only protects against negligence claims and accidents. And this was a claim for fraud, right? Or breach of contract. So insurance is very limited in what it will actually protect you with. And it's even more limited if it's a really catastrophic injury, because, insurance companies are inherently in the business of collecting premiums and denying coverage. So when things get really expensive, they're automatically out. But the company structure combined with insurance is how you take the 80% that insurance will cover you for all of the accidents that'll happen. And the company structure bridges the extra 20%. Things that are outside of accidents. And with that, you get a complete protection for your wealth and well-being.
That's great. Keep going.
Yeah, well, it's really one of those pieces, what we talk about is I see that people will talk about insurance being one of those, like the holy grail of what you need to do, right? And it's really the biggest misnomer, because the fact is that it's really has to do with, most of the time, insurance will protect you. And that's 100% true, because most accidents are usually pretty small. And that's what insurance is designed to protect you from. It's designed to get rid of all of the nuisance pieces in our lives, right? What it's not designed to do is to take care of the catastrophic things. Like when the sky falls, insurance isn't going to be there to protect you, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's not what insurance companies are really in the business of doing. And we see this all the time, right? Where insurance companies will deny coverage and then have to come back after they're sued and pay out some money or whatever, right? So really, like, what the insurance is telling us, from what we just see in the news, is that if things get really bad, you'll have to sue us. And then to sue us, you're actually going to have to pay out of your own pocket against our deep pockets. So you're left suing your own insurance company. So my philosophy is, let's not rely on insurance companies. Let's go ahead and we hire them to be able to take care of all the nuisance things for us. But what we're going to do is we're going to combine that with a company structure that says, something happens on property A, right? And my insurance company denies it. My worst case scenario is I lose property A. That's probably something I can afford to have happen in my life and have it not be devastating. And that's a really different scenario than, my friend who ended up losing $3 million in real estate from a single lawsuit because he thought his insurance was enough. Because a single lawsuit, it's unrestricted in the amount of money that somebody can come after you for. They get to just make up a number, essentially, and that's how much they're going to sue you for, and that's how much you potentially have at risk, right? So if you have the company structure in place, though, you get to control what amount you get to lose from what they do. They don't. So the power gets to shift over to you. And these things, to be able to put them in place, we're not talking like $10,000 plus. Anymore, right? And the old guard and the old way they do it was setting up individual LLCs and then a parent LLC and individual child LLCs and all the yearly expenses and the filing fees and having to have a new LLC for every property. Throw that out the window. Those strategies are the old strategies, and there's no reason to use them anymore. They're too expensive and too cumbersome, and actually are way too time consuming to be able to handle. With the new way of using a Series LLC structure, what we're able to do is to be able to expand your company for free. It's infinitely scalable for free. You get all of the top protections with streamlining your taxes. Everything channels up through a parent company. You get one bank account. You get one EIN number. All you have to do is keep track of your accounting for each individual property, which is as simple as tagging the income and expenses in QuickBooks. I really can't emphasize it enough of how your life as an investor can remain exactly the same for everything that you're doing while achieving phenomenal protections and without having to incur any additional time costs that are sunk into having to manage this really cumbersome organization. And what we specialize in is taking on all of the extra little details for everybody. So that way, really, it's like a way to just offload all of the headaches. I think that's really what I was trying to get to with creating this company. I was like, is there a way to really offload all of the headaches of investing so that way people can just do the fun part? Because that's always what I enjoyed. And I'm a super big nerd. So I was like, all right, well, I think this is the way that we could actually do it. And we've been, company's been blowing up, since we've been getting on more podcasts. Even just in the last 6 months, we've grown significantly for it. So, it's really cool to see so many people that are really like getting it, they're getting clued in to, what's possible out here. And instead of living in the world of like confusion and doubt, can really get clarity about what the steps they need to do to move forward with their life and be protected for themselves and their families.
What's one of the biggest mistakes you've seen real estate investors make from a legal standpoint?
Well, the biggest mistakes that I commonly see is people own assets in their personal name, because that means anything that goes wrong in their anywhere in their personal life, like get into a car accident that exceeds the limits of liability in their insurance policy, or they have an unrelated business dispute, that means that somebody gets to take all of their real estate and everything they own personally. But it's also the same thing with real estate, right? I mean, we know that as a real estate investor, over a 20-year period, you have a 95% chance of being involved in a major lawsuit. We don't know when the lawsuit's going to happen, but we're dang sure that it's going to happen at some point. So owning property in your personal name is by far the number one error. But I understand why people are doing it is because the thought of what can I do as an alternative is like really confusing when you try to research it online, because people aren't providing clear answers of a way out. They just provide objections and doubt statements around it. And then at the end of the day, if you start looking at this, they're like, oh, well, you better call your local attorney. Well, guess what? Your local attorney probably doesn't know anything about real estate investing, right? And that's what I was looping it back to before, is about this is the importance of having professionals that understand your business. So that way they know they can see the ways out, whereas normal attorneys are called deal killers, right? Because they can't ever see the way out to navigate the deals. What you need is an attorney and a professional relationship and a CPA relationship that's a professional relationship that can educate you on how to do the deals better to help you make more money. Otherwise, you're just flushing money down the toilet.
Yeah, I mean that's so critical, and I think that's one of the issues I encountered first off as an investor. I do value add type of acquisitions, and I was really excited when I saw, I've got all these capital expenditures and so forth, and man, I'm not gonna be charged anything for taxes. I'm going, this is wonderful, but then the reality was when I wanted to refinance properties later down the road, they looked at that tax. My actual tax filing, and said, well, gee, you really don't qualify for the good rates because you basically, have a negative income. And, in reality, well, that wasn't that, but, the offset from the write-offs and so forth, it was great that I got the tax break, but then now, I'm struggling trying to get decent financing because my tax returns don't reflect, anything that would attract the better interest rates. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%. Right. And so that's where like the first conversation that we have with everybody is about, where are you at currently and where are you expecting to grow in the next 3 to 5 years? And then developing a game plan of how do you execute that, pursuant to that timeline. Because it really matters where you want to go for the roadmap of how to get there. Right. And that's the only thing that you can have to be able to know that is experience. So if you don't have somebody that's experienced that's advising you, whether that's going to be like an attorney CPA or like a mentor or a partner that's done it before, you're really kind of flying blind. And if you look at any of the podcasts that we're going to be dropping on September 1st is the Real Estate Nerds podcast that you were actually on, Bill. Mm-hmm. That's where we dig into what happens with most investors when things go sideways is because they were flying blind and they just didn't even realize they were flying blind at the time. So it's the information, the accessibility to information and experience is the number one way that people don't have catastrophic losses or catastrophic mistakes that happen to them and just keep life kind of trucking along on a nice, peaceful, steady gain, which is what I think we all kind of want, right? Maybe huge upside is okay, but like, wow, do we really want to prevent the downsides?
Right. That's great. Great information. Our audience are primarily folks that are 50 years of age and older. Some of them are approaching retirement. Some are already in retirement. Those approaching retirement are concerned that, am I going to have the retirement funds that are going to last for the duration? And they're looking at maybe supplementing, maybe they're looking at maybe even creating a legacy, something they can leave to their children. And by investing in real estate, not only are they boosting the value of sort of their nest egg, but they're also, creating something they can hand down to their children. And then you have those that are in retirement right now that are realizing, gee, I don't know if this is covering everything for me right now. I've got some impending medical expenses. I've got some other things. And so they're looking at real estate investing as a means to be able to sort of fill the gap. What advice would you have for those folks, especially the ones maybe starting out? What, from a legal standpoint, really, what should they do? What should be some of the first things that they do to basically safeguard their future real estate investments?
Well, the way I look at this is that there's a couple of cool things that you can do with estate planning that we do for investors all the time, right? Because we're a one-stop shop for everything that real estate investors need. And And you can create all of those pieces as part of a living trust and a pour over will. Like your living trust will hold everything in your life, and then pass it on to your heirs. And the reason to use a living trust is because it avoids the probate process. And the probate process is what happens with anything that passes if you don't have a will or if you just have a will. And that means that the assets can get caught up in a court proceeding, and during that court proceeding, it could mean that, the rents aren't being collected, the mortgage payment isn't getting paid, insurance isn't getting paid, et cetera. So if like the insurance collapses and the house burns down, there's nothing you can do, right? So by using a living trust structure, you're able to circumvent that entire problem. The living trust in our scenario actually owns the asset holding company, the Series LLC. And it's through that process that you're actually able to protect all of your assets during your life, and then you can pass the company structure onto your heirs. So then they inherit it in a protected structure as well. So that's kind of a twofer, right? Like the asset holding company itself becomes another asset to be able to ensure that the property that you've accumulated in your life stay protected during your life, but also during theirs. So I think that's a pretty neat, double up for what everybody could be doing.
Now, do you recommend that folks that begin real estate investing, that they all set up, let's say, a Series LLC, whether they're going to own just a couple of single family homes or whether they're going to have, apartment buildings?
Yeah. So if you have more than $50,000 at, out, just in general, like, and I say out because, everything that you're doing as a real estate investor, if you're doing your personal name, is part of the public record. People can easily find it and see if you're a good target to sue. If it's more than $50,000, you need protection. Less than $50,000, you don't need protection. If you just have one asset, then a traditional LLC is going to be fine. Remember, because what we talked about before is that we want to compartmentalize one asset to one entity. The Series LLC allows us to do that infinitely for free. But if you're only going to have one asset, then an LLC itself is fine to be able to do that. Once you start scaling and you have, more 2, 3 or more properties, or if you project that you're going to be growing that big in the next, 2 to 5 years or so, then it starts to make a lot of sense to have a Series LLC, because the advantage of the Series LLC is it scales, but it also streamlines all of the operations. So as you grow bigger, you don't acquire more headaches. You still have that bare minimum amount of work.
I like that. That's great. Well, your business, it seems like it's just really taken off here too. What are your plans for your company? It sounds like you're all over the place. 1,000 clients. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Where do you see your company going?
Yeah, well, I've been doing this for 4.5 years, right? So it's not like we just started or something like that, for doing the real estate investing as well as the advice for that. But, where are we growing is that I think that really on the what we've seen so far is, at the prices that we're able to help people at, it's unheard of in the industry. It's easily better solutions than anybody else is offering right now, and it's half the cost. And I actually tell attorneys, I meet with them all the time, and I show them everything that I'm doing, right? I open the kimono and I show you, I show everybody, here's exactly what I'm doing. Anybody is free to copy this stuff. And guess what? Nobody even, they don't even try to, really, because the most attorneys are actually really wanting to just do something that's really simple and easy and repeatable for them, right? Whereas what we're trying to do right now is trying to create something that says, well, here's one system that we can really use for everybody in the United States to own any type of asset class. And you do it like this, it gives you the best protections. And I think people are really starting to take notice, and other attorneys in there are just lagging behind. Trying to do the same old, you just do like one LLC per property and that'll leave you with, 8 LLCs. Well, why? It's because it's really easy to just do it that way. Like that's a really simple Secretary of State filing. And I think everybody's just kind of a little bit lazy because people are still willing to pay for it, right? Until, people like me are going to come along. And what we're doing right now is we're changing the conversation to say, well, what happens if we give it all away for free? What happens if we give all of the information away for free so that way anybody could copy it and there's no hiding the ball with any of the information? And that really you're going to still purchase from us, because even if we show you everything, and even if we show all the other attorneys everything, people are like, we would still rather have you guys build it, because there's a big difference between showing you the playbook, the how to build a Formula One car, and actually building the Formula One car and all the questions and implications and taxes that come up with. The beautiful part is that for our clients, they don't actually have to understand 100% of everything that we're actually doing and all the nuances of it. What they really have to understand is, do I want that? If at the question of that is yes, then I say, great, we'll take care of all of the setup for it. And we'll take care of the maintenance. And then you have unlimited ongoing legal support with us to ask us any questions that you have along the way. But it takes me about a year to get one of my staff members fully trained up to be able to understand all the nuances in here. So I'm not really worried about anybody copying what we do, because that's me personally training somebody for a year. So I don't know how long it would take somebody else to rip it off. But, but it's open. I mean, anybody could. It's an open playbook.
So when you say you do everything, I mean, literally, are you doing, the bookkeeping? Are you doing the, setting up QuickBooks online or something? I mean, how extensive are you really involved?
Yeah, all of those things are possible, right, for us to be able to do for you. That most of our clients find the sweet spot for them is that we set up all the company structure. We make sure all of their companies are intact and handling all of the process that goes along with the legal paperwork form every year. Typically, they feel okay with setting up the QuickBooks online and handling the tagging for the income and expenses, because that's like some quick YouTube videos, like maybe half an hour to an hour worth of YouTube videos to figure out how to do. And they're like, well, we'll do that piece of it. So that way they can manage their own, funds in. It's really simple, right? To do that, you probably don't need to pay $100+ a month to have somebody else handle your bookkeeping, at that level, right? But yeah, we're happy to help everybody as a full service, from start to finish with everything that they need.
That's excellent. Wow. Man, this is like zipping by here, and I've still got like 1,000 questions. Can you just give me, like in 5 minutes, 6 keys to safeguarding your properties from lawsuits?
Yeah. Well, it's just going to be, a couple of quick things, to recap here. And I'm not sure if this is going to be, full 6. I think we've covered about 38 today.
Really?
But really what you got to do is, number one, you got to get the assets out of your name. Even if you, file something on LegalZoom to pull the assets out of your name, like, do it, because LegalZoom's it might work, there's a chance it could work. And if it does, then that would be great, right? And that could be really cheap. But if you can afford a little bit more, then you want to start looking at, how to really do things that, the quote unquote, like right way. And that's, using land trust to avoid the due on sale clause and create anonymity, and then compartmentalizing the assets. And again, these options of being able to create that high levels of protection are usually only a few $1,000s total to be able to put together for most of our clients, right? Unless they have really large portfolios. So I would say that would be, number one, get things out of your name. Number two is make sure that you're adequately insured, because insurance is going to cover that 80%, of the things that are going to go wrong. Most people have insurance because their mortgage company is going to require it of them. But you might be able to ditch the umbrella insurance policies if you have a company structure, because remember, the company structure is going to be a step in to protect you from any really catastrophic losses, and it's going to do it for you every time. You're not leaving your fate in some other insurance company's hands. You're able to control that piece yourself with the legal protection there. Number three is going to be keeping accurate books, which is really easy to do. You just have to make sure you keep track of it. You can have one bank account with a Series LLC as long as you have accurate accounting records for each individual series, which really just means tagging the income and expenses for each series. That's what the courts look at whenever they're reviewing whether you are treating these like individual companies or not, right? You'll see property management companies will do that all the time, where they'll have one bank account with 100 clients' money into it. And if the property management company is sued, you don't get access to their bank account with all their clients' money, because it's not their money, it's their clients' money. That's the same rationale that we use regarding saying, using one bank account is going to be acceptable. Additionally, what I would also say is combine a good a good estate plan in place, using a living trust and a will, using the living trust to hold all of the assets of the asset holding company. So technically the way that works is a living trust owns the asset holding company. The asset holding company then holds every single individual asset if it's a Series LLC. The reason I do that is because throughout your life, assets will be going in and out at the company level. You're going to be doing that anyway. That's just going to be part of your normal business management. And what that means is that once your estate plan is put in place, it's never obsolete. Most everybody else that's not doing it that way, I can guarantee you, has an obsolete estate plan, because they would have to update their estate plan for every single time that they acquire a new asset or change an asset. And these people aren't that diligent on their paperwork. I would say the next piece to safeguard your assets would be partnering with somebody that's going to be watching your back. If it's not us, find somebody that's like us, that they offer you the unlimited support for all of your questions. So you have one trusted source of information to go to. Once you start trying to trust different sources of information, you're going to find conflict, which is going to produce confusion and keep you from being able to take action. And also what we do in addition is we offer everybody a twice yearly review of their estate plan as well as their company structure to ensure that they're actually running it correctly. So it's not just having it set up correctly. We also want to make sure that you're actually running it in the proper way to ensure your financial future. Because when you're talking about retirement, you're talking about things that you can't afford to lose, because going back to work really isn't an option. So you really have to make sure that those cost pieces are really going to make sense in terms of what the protections are going to be, given that the protections are so important, because you don't really have other options. Like, you don't have a plan B, really, if you lose a significant chunk of your retirement because you're out of time to rebuild from something like that. And I would say, and the closing piece of it is the most important thing you can do to protect your assets, no matter what that's going to be or no matter who you work with, is to just bite the bullet and take the first step into calling somebody that can help walk you through it, right? We're happy to do that, to be able to outline a game plan for you of, what your situation needs and what can make sense from a financial perspective, because I'm an investor. I understand the cost implications and how that ties into how we should be thinking about our business, as well as, what our financial projections are going to look like. So that's the reason I built the firm, is to be able to help people that are just the average investors to be able to get what they need in terms of that type of wealth planning, as well as risk management, so they can, we can all just have a more peaceful life, right? And not have to worry about the, other shoe dropping, and then all of a sudden, you're left holding the bag and not knowing what to do. What we try to do is to guarantee a way that you're never left in that position. And we think that these types of advanced structures we use are, affordable, they're manageable for everybody, because they're just as simple as having as one single LLC. And they give everybody that extra peace of mind knowing that, we have experts that are watching their back, so they're not going to make mistakes.
Great stuff. Thanks for sharing that. Well, we're at the end of the interview here. We have a little thing we call our Wrap It Up, where I ask you a series of quick questions so you can share resources that you have benefited from, that our listeners as well will benefit from by your sharing here. So if you're ready, we'll go ahead and wrap it up.
Okay.
Favorite real estate book?
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Favorite business book?
4-Hour Workweek and The Lean Startup.
Most valuable website for success other than your own?
I'd say for real estate investors, probably Bigger Pockets.
Yeah, definitely. How about favorite app?
The Habit Bowl. It's just like a habit tracking app that I do to be able to help me create new habits in my life.
Oh, that's neat. Haven't heard that one before. That's cool. How about favorite quote?
You win some and you lose some. I don't know who said it, but it's a good one.
I like it. And this final one, if something catastrophic happened and you lost absolutely everything that you had built up over the years here, whether it's real estate investments or your legal practice, and all you have is $1,000 in cash, what would you do with that $1,000 to try to reestablish everything you lost?
Yeah, man, I would probably go hunker down with a friend of mine, read as many books as I could, and figure out how to help people. I think that a lot of times that we actually make a mistake in life when we think that money is actually a barrier for us to be able to create great things. The reality is that the universe that we live in, the world that we live in, is actually much more abundant than any of us are willing to accept. The ability to be able to provide for your basic necessities is actually a lot easier than we all think. And the reality is that if you want to rebuild, or you would ever in a situation that you find yourself in a dire straits, in essence, it always comes back into figuring out how you can help people, whether that's going to be making money or whether it's going to be into just reestablishing networks of people that will just give you what you need, like with food, housing, shelter, etc. If you think that that's not true, I would encourage you to go travel more and expand the scope of what your life experience has been like, because there's a whole different world out there besides the very limited and kind of Machiavellian and zero-sum type of game that I think a lot of people get trapped in.
Great response. I like that. And we have basically the last question is really, how can people get a hold of you? You've shared some great stuff, and you've shared a lot of excellent, valuable, free information. I think we would like to at least be able to help those folks to make their way to you to find out more about how you might be able to help them.
Yeah, for sure. So the best way to contact me is going to be through our website. That's going to be the royallegalsolutions.com website, or you can call us at 512-757-3994. You can email me at Scott, SCOTT, at royallegalsolutions.com. We're also going to have a special promotion for you guys here today. From the royallegalsolutions.com/olddogs. We'll be having like free product giveaways and whatnot that'll be associated with that. We're actually talking about having a raffle of $5,000 worth of legal services to include an asset holding company and a few other things that might be ready for you guys as it comes up as a promoted. But if it's not ready by the time you guys get there, we'll make sure to include everybody into the raffle whenever it does come online. So come by the website and check out a bunch of the free info that we have, as well as our YouTube channel. Royal Legal Solutions YouTube channel has like all of the FAQ questions of me on video answering for them for everything that most real estate investors need to know. But the royallegalsolutions.com website will also have all the contact information for you to get in touch and get some just free info about what is it you need to know for your particular situation. And we're always happy to share that with everybody of what our viewpoint is on that, whether you choose to hire us or not. We're not really in the business of trying to sell people. We're really in the business of trying to see if we're a good fit to become partners, for the next 20 years as a trusted advisor and resource for you to help you grow. And that's kind of a vetting process for both of us, because some clients, really aren't a good fit for us. And we have to turn them away just because what they're needing is really not something that we're offering, even though they want to work for us or they want to work with us. But we're happy to have that conversation with you and let you know what we would think would be most applicable for your situation, so you can, make a decision as well about, whether we're the right fit.
Great. That's great. Well, thank you for that. And there will be a link to that special webpage or whatever you guys are setting up for the Old Dog listeners here, which is really exciting. Thanks. Wow. Well, Scott, there's been just a wealth of information here, and my mind's just spinning right now. And I really appreciate your sharing so candidly with us and some of the great tips and resources that you shared with us. So thank you. Thank you very much. But before you go, we are called the Old Dogs REI Network, and nobody gets off the line without giving us their best old hound dog howl. So, Scott, if you are ready, we are ready to hear you.
How about that? It's more of a killer wolf, but that's just what feels natural to me. I don't know.
No, it had that. No, that was like a basset hound. That was like
was
a
basset
basset
hound.
Yeah, it had that bassy quality to it. So I thought that was very good. That you should do like voiceover for Disney or something. I mean, that's really good.
Well, if I end up with only $1,000 left, that might be my next best highest purpose. Doing voiceover work. So we'll find out.
I love it.
Yeah. Buddy.
Well, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it, Scott.
Yeah, sure thing, Bill. Take care. Thanks.
I also want to thank all of our Old Dog listeners out there for joining us today. I know there's a lot of other things you could be doing today, but the fact that you've taken the time to join us means a lot, and we really appreciate it. Please note everything we talked about here, everything that Scott shared, as well as some of the links that we have, will all be available through our show notes at the Old Dogs website at olddogsreinetwork.com/blog. You can look for the episode that has Scott Smith all the information you need will be linked there. So that's the show for today. Remember, cash flow is king and real estate investing the means. Until next time, keep moving forward and may God bless.
Thank you very much for visiting the Old Dogs REI Network. We would greatly appreciate if you would stop by iTunes and let us know what you think of the show. We would love if you could subscribe to the podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and write a review. The more ratings and reviews we receive, the more visible the podcast will be to others. Thank you.